Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Hedlund.
Well, welcome back to another edition of Ask the Mayor. I think that's the name of the show, isn't it? I've been replaced. My name is Mary Heinrichs, and I am happy to be here.
His feelings are hurt.
I'm more angry about the fact that I tried to kill myself to be on time. I showed up 1 minute late, but in this new era of efficiency under the Hedlund regime, what did the Boy Scouts used to say? If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, don't bother showing up. And then Pack 73 down in the Immaculate Conception basement for all us old
1 minute?
weeblos.
1 minute late?
I was 1 minute late in the parking lot. But that being said, we're moving onward and upwards. It's a new regime here in Weymouth, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Whatever small role I can play, Robert, I am happy to play a part.
Were you happy with your replacement, or should we have utilized someone else?
I am
such as Donnie Norton or someone.
Who is not a fan of the great Mary Heinrichs? I am Mary. The Heinrichs name was in the news over the course of the last couple of days. It's a Heinrichs that's pretty formidable on the Washington scene. I don't know if they're a reporter or an elected official, but anyway, I'm a massive fan of Mary. I'm a massive fan of the crew. I'm a massive fan of this town. I'm in development as far as my affection for the great mayor of the town of Weymouth, Robert G. Wait a minute, what's the middle name? Did we determine? Alice Hedlund. So, dear Mayor, that being said, it's January 2025. What's
your middle name?
James Michael Melody, named after James Michael Curley, the great Boston mayor and politician. But we
named after him for real?
Yeah, that is real. All the Irish Americans, of course, he was a great hero for all the Irish American immigrants in the turn of last century. And I think I've told you this before. My grandfather, Patrick Melody, was the state representative and senator from the district that is right around Moseley. It's on Moseley Street, but it's St. Margaret Church. My grandfather was the rep that was it Marty Was or?
You have told us on the show before.
So we have there is a thread of political women in my blood.
You know the great political stunt among many that Curley, when he ran for mayor, utilized?
I don't.
He got a big sedan or a limo or something or whatever, similar to what the incumbent mayor had utilized, and had a look-alike guy in them. They would pull up to work crews and be yelling at them, get to work.
Well, as you have demonstrated on more than one occasion, the rules are there are no rules. And so we go and get started once again on an exciting episode of Ask the Mayor. Mary not only does a great job, Sean McDonough, if you're watching this, I did relay to the crew and to our mayor that I bumped into the great Sean McDonough, the original host of Ask the Manager.
Wasn't the original, he was later.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I did ask him if he would consider being my replacement. And he did say he was interested, but we haven't been able to find him since the June meeting at the Whole Foods that was very prescient.
Well, you got to follow up on that.
Yeah, no, I've sent him a couple texts, but I don't want to be a pain in his butt. And he was certainly a gentleman, and he said he was very interested. And P.S., to nobody's surprise, a big fan of the Hedlund regime, and you personally. I guess you guys are high school buddies, right?
He was a year behind me in high school, yeah.
Yeah, so there you have it. All right, listen, we're going to get going. I've lost my edge, and I think we need to focus on what's important in the great town of Weymouth. At some point, we are going to revisit the Columbian Square Review. But that being said, dear Mr. Mayor, every year this time of year with the cold weather, I worry about the locals that go on the ice at Whitman's Pond. To me, it is too dangerous. Are there any statistics on drownings or near drownings there? Wow. Is this legal? I just think it's a ridiculous thing to do, especially with the little ones. Sheila C. Well, that's a Weymouth tradition that goes back a long time, Robert. I used to skate there, and I'm sure you did too.
I haven't been on skates in a long time. Chisholm's Pond was my go-to for skating. But Chisholm's, and Elias.
Elias, of course, is a big one for the Jackson Square crowd.
Yeah.
But a drowning in the winter time at that pond, I don't think I've ever heard of one.
I don't have statistics, but I do recall of a rescue some time ago that the Weymouth Fire Department had to make on the pond.
Drowning?
And it does appear, Jim, you could confirm this or not, that with the temperatures are what they are nowadays, the pond is more infrequently frozen, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and maybe potentially at risk of people falling through. Yeah.
Right, but I don't think we can be too paternalistic on telling people when they can go on a pond and not go on a pond.
Yeah, that would be an overreach, I would imagine, for sure.
Last year I observed people ski-mobiling on it.
Whoa, that sounds a little risky.
So
Okay.
I would say no. I don't have the statistics, and no, I wouldn't want to be the one to tell. I think it's a family decision. You know, keep an eye on your kids, and you decide when you think it's safe to go out on the ice.
Does John ever go down there? You have a son? You live very walking distance?
He's been on there, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. The great Pete Fleming, who was a fan of the show, abuts and lives right beside Whitman's Pond, and he's always ever vigilant. Pete, keep an eye on it first.
There are some safer options. There's been kids skating on the little drainage area at Legion.
Legion Field? Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's not as big, but...
Yeah. And of course, the O'Connell Rink remains very popular, and there's all kinds of hours for people to skate there, correct?
Excellent point.
Excellent, there we go. The great David
The new
Lenahan.
and improved Canal Rink after we took it over.
With Cousin Lenahan on the manning the fort down there, keeping an eye on the maintenance for all the residents. All right, Robert, we're gonna, as I know your objective is always to get to as many questions as possible, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna carry on. This is a blurb for every episode. Could be a helpful thing for people, Jeff. Mr. Mayor, would it be possible to put a short list of topics covered in each episode of Ask the Mayor on the episode description? Would it also be possible to do something similar for board meeting videos, or if someone is looking for a particular topic or action? It is easier to find. Thanks, that's Paul from Facebook. And we're going to divert this over to the great Jeff Cummings, who...
Before you do, I got to add something to this. This is weird. People are going to think this is like a setup.
Oh, hey now.
This is completely weird. So Harrison in my office just started a mayor's YouTube page.
Excellent.
And he's been loading up development update, a lot of great stuff that WETC produces, including the show. And I was looking for an episode. I was looking for 2 episodes, one that involved Dana Hersey,
Ask the Mayor,
and one that involved you answering a gentleman from China.
Ni hao.
And you know, it just says episode 22, 23 is not really. So I just said today, this is crazy. I said, do you have a grid that we could go back and edit them and say, you know, Dana Hersey episode or this or that? I don't think we have the room on YouTube to list all of it, and I don't think you have it, but you're jumping in, so answer the questions.
Yeah. Well, so 2 things. Hopefully you'll take a load off Harrison. I think one of our New Year's resolutions is to start uploading stuff to YouTube ourselves. But even on our website, I'm gonna start adding inside of the description. Each video has a description of what's in the episode. And normally it's more of a generic thing, but to Paula's suggestion, I am going to add that on our website. You can go through each episode and I'll just list what the questions are for each episode.
I think that would be handy and helpful, and so people can look it up.
Yeah, so if you're
using those keywords.
Exactly. So if you can look for keywords, or if you
so it's easy for them to go back and track something I said to get me in a
not against you. Yeah, sure. All
right. I don't think I like this idea anymore.
Well, Jeff, as far as I can recall, this is your debut on camera on your own show. Is that fair to say?
During COVID, we
think he's had some cameos.
Yeah, but maybe I think we co-hosted a show during COVID days. But yeah, I think
because I think we should recognize the work of the extremely talented and heck of a nice guy, Jeff Cummings. Does all the cartoon graphics that you see. His sense of humor and his creativity guide this show and make it one of the better things to see.
Thank you.
And all local cable television everywhere.
And like a Renaissance man, he's a musician.
He's no Jim Melody, but
historian. He knew who Bob Uecker was.
And he, like a lot of leaders in this town, plants his flag in the home base of Hingham for what we understand.
Yeah. Weymouth guy originally. Yeah.
That's all right.
Streets and
we'll never let go of you. Mr. Cummings. This is a great Cummings legacy and family tree in the town.
All right, next question.
All right,
well, before I get to her other point, for the meetings, there's a new feature on our website now that just got added. We're going to add, when you watch like a town council meeting, for example, we're going to have the ability to attach the agenda to that meeting, so you can kind of follow along with the agenda. So for any of the
which goes along with her question.
Yep, exactly.
And just another innovation from the Headland administration for the great citizens of Weymouth. The town march is on. You're leading some of the charges. We're going to keep going on with questions.
I'm not sure that
we're all back.
I'm not sure that Comcast is actually part of the Headland administration, but we have a good working relationship when it comes to their local access functions.
No doubt about it. In this show, if anybody's ever had the pleasure of seeing other towns do something similar as far as local production is concerned, Mary, Jeff, and the squad are top notch, and I don't think there's a better one that I've seen anyway, Robert.
So I'm looking over your shoulder at the next question,
Okay, well, here we go.
and I'm gonna
we're
choke.
moving on.
I'm gonna choke on this one.
This is also coincidental, and I'm going to tangent after you answer directly. This is from Lawrence Johnson Jr. I was wondering what has happened to all the stuff named after my uncle, Private Eldon Johnson, now that Johnson School has closed.
Yeah, I don't see these in advance generally, right?
No, never.
But did this come in on Facebook? Because I think I saw it on Facebook. Yeah, I saw this on Facebook. So I wanted to do a little work on this prior to the show, and I didn't get around to it. I don't quite know what he means. I don't know if he's talking about artifacts that are in the school.
Yeah, wasn't there a uniform? And,
or what's going to happen, or what's going to happen with the name of the school. But I don't know what he's referring to. But the school is going to stay named. The building, upon its reuse, will still remain as.
Excellent. So whatever artifacts were there probably would remain, right?
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, we're curating a lot of stuff. I mean, when I came in as mayor, we have a lot of things that were kind of spread out in different areas, and then with the library being rebuilt, there was less room, believe it or not, for a whole host of reasons, mainly because of the requirements the State Board of Library Commissioners put on us, if you remember that discussion. So there was less room to display some of Historic Society's artifacts, but we have a great military tradition in Weymouth, obviously, as he knows.
We're very proud of.
And the work we're doing with the VFW Hall, as you know, the VFW went insolvent. The charter was dissolved, and under the arrangement that existed with the town and that VFW on Broad Street, if they ever were to go insolvent, the deed to the building reverts back to the town. So we just got control of the building. Oh, wow. The building's a mess. Working with Congressman Lynch, we have a federal earmark coming to rehab the building.
Excellent.
And the upstairs is going to be basically a Weymouth Military History Museum. So there may be things there that will be relocated to the museum, which will get
sounds appropriate.
More eyes on it
Sure.
there. And we're going to move the Veterans Agent office to the first floor. A lot of the Veterans Council meetings will happen there.
Smart.
They'll be able to, on a volunteer basis, staff the museum. So that's exciting news that I think might impact this. If in fact he's referring to artifacts that are in the building, we may have a better home for those artifacts.
That's excellent. I hope that is what he means. And if it's not, maybe he could respond through an email or a text regarding the whole process.
Yeah, and if he's watching, reach out to me, and I'll check on specifically what's over there. And obviously the school department has control of the building, but we'll figure out what's going on with that.
And a legacy well worth preserving. Obviously, my side note very quickly is it's from Lawrence Johnson Jr. Did you ever meet the great Larry Johnson, who co-hosted Johnson and Mustard and Johnson?
But you've talked briefly. I did when I filled in at RKO.
He passed away about a month ago.
Right.
His mother used to live in Weymouth. He was here all the time. He was the foremost sports cartoonist in the country for a long time. He worked for the Globe, and just a great guy. And he just passed.
I want to
Larry,
say one
we
more
loved
thing.
you. Great guy.
One more thing about the reference of the VFW. When we got control of it, someone had gone in and basically ransacked the place. It was sad. They were looking for something. They dumped out file cabinets. There was actually this beautiful portrait of William Seach that was on the floor. People had walked across it. We cleaned it up. Carpentry maintenance for the school department made a nice frame for it. It now hangs in the lobby of the Seach School, so if you ever over there, you're going to see the thing. It's an awesome painting of William Seach. And Talbot and Seach are my two favorite guys of our 5 Medal of Honor recipients, not to have anyone overshadow the other, but just their connections to Weymouth and their story. Seach was awesome. Lived into his 90s, veteran of the Boxer Rebellion and World War I. And he lived. Unfortunately, Talbot was killed at 19 years old. But Seach used to put his uniform on and go speak to an assembly at the grammar school named for him.
Awesome.
And there are guys my age and your age that remember him coming in there. So that's how old we are, dude. When you think about guys our age that went to that school, that had a guy come in and visit that was in the Boxer Rebellion.
Active duty.
In the
World War I.
1890s Boxer Rebellion, right?
Yeah.
Or was it?
1920s. Yeah, to 30s.
No, Boxer Rebellion was before World War I, dude.
We're going to look it up.
I'll win that bet. Anyway, next question.
Cup of coffee on it. Boxing was after World War I, before World War II.
Look it up well before the show.
All right, here we go. Robert. In fairness to Robert, he is an excellent trivia guy. We take our shots at the mayor, but he is a trivia man. All right, Robert, from James Badgett, short and sweet. What's happening with the factory paint parcel? I bet you could spend the whole show on that.
Well, I think as we tape this, the latest Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is airing on WETC. And I would suggest if someone has a great interest in it, go on the WETC website and look at the Board of Zoning Appeals meetings on this. How many have they had now? You think 4 or 5?
What's the predominant
There's been a lot.
goal? Is it another residential apartment building?
No. Factory paint's commercial zoned building on Route 18. You're familiar with
I
it.
know exactly what the parcel is. I just didn't know what they're going to replace.
So the building had been for sale for a while after factory paint closed. Firm bought it to put, there's been some iterations, but the current iteration includes a Chipotle and a Starbucks.
So a retail space.
It's retail, right? There's a weird, it's a tough site, obviously, with that intersection. The state could have done a better job, we think, when they laid that intersection out with the reconstruction of Route 18. Originally they were talking about some exit onto Jessica Lane, and there's a lot there that the developer got with that. They've agreed to put 2 residential homes that fit with the character of Jessica. I think the neighbors are happy with that part of this, but obviously if you look at the meeting, they don't want this activity there. They're concerned about the traffic, access in and out of the site. So that's why this thing has gone on as long as it's gone on. It's a very tough thing for the neighbors. I mean, you're balancing something that's been zoned that way for a million years, property rights, versus, the concerns the neighborhood have. So you're hoping that what ultimately happens there is the least impactful to the neighbors, but you watch the last meeting, there's a lot of people that aren't happy with it. And I think they've had, based on the fact there's been that many Board of Zoning Appeal meetings, there's been multiple iterations of tweaking the site.
So that's unusual that you'd have 5 or 6
It's
meetings
tough.
like
I mean,
that.
if you got two first-class tenants, who knows what you could have? You run into this all the time. When we rezoned the old Keith Shoe Factory building, França property on Wharf Street, for instance, that was an industrial zoned area. So you had to weigh like, okay, we got this proposal here, but we don't get this. What could we have? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So there's always that element to this. But as far as the particulars, I would just suggest checking the WETC website and you'll get everything you want to know and more.
So it's in development, shall we say? Nothing's been approved and nothing's finalized.
Nothing's finalized. I mean, something's going to happen there, you know? And you just hope that the Board of Zoning Appeal is judicious in what they allow to have happen and, suggested changes to the site that might improve the situation.
More progress in our town and more changes.
Just my opinion in not having seen every minute of every meeting, certainly what's on the board now is better than what they first came in with. There's been some changes, but it's still to a point where some of the neighbors certainly aren't happy.
Okay. Well, you can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time. To paraphrase the original Republican, Mr. Lincoln, we want to remind everybody, please keep the questions coming to askmayorbob@gmail.com. Askmayorbob@gmail.com.
Very appropriate quote when it comes to redevelopment, because everyone's got opinions on aesthetics and I'd rather have this than that.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Or I'd rather have nothing and just keep Weymouth in a bubble.
Which probably isn't going to be the plan, I'm going to guess.
Well, when you have something that's an existing commercial site and it's zoned commercial, you're going to get something commercial.
I think that's called square peg in the square hole. Robert, we're going to move on, if you don't mind, just to continue to try to get through the rest of these as quickly as possible. And this one is a little lengthy, but hang in there with me. This is from our friend Paul Burrell. Dear Mr. Mayor, we need a police officer on the Weymouth side of the Fore River Bridge. They can park at the cigar store parking lot and stop all those speeders flying over the bridge. It would make revenue for our city, and it needs to stop. All these accidents every single day, it's dangerous coming out of the side streets. They even go through the stoplight at Evans Street. I know that we do not have enough police, but something has to be done to slow down these motorcycles too. And when they did the construction at the end
Slow
of,
down motorcycles?
something has to be done to slow down these motorcycles too. I imagine the motorcycles are part of the vehicle traffic that he's concerned with. And when they did the construction at the end of Manatequit Street, Mass DOT never put our crosswalk back so that people can catch the bus across the street to go to Quincy. It needs to be looked at this year, please. Thank you for all your great work, Mr. Mayor, and our historic town. You rock, that's in parentheses. I hope we get the streets done over this year after all the pipes were installed on Bluff Road. Eversole should pay for them since they bring used trucks into this residential neighborhood. For the children that live here, it's dangerous. Some trucks aren't able to get down our streets. Thanks again for listening. Enjoy your day. Happy New Year. So it looks like there's 2 issues, Robert. Most predominantly, he's concerned with the traffic on 3A, it looks like in Bridge Street. Are there a lot of accidents on that road? He seems to think that they are.
Is that part of the question too?
This is, Mary is kind enough, there's always an original, Mary's kind enough to increase the font size for the old time and blind guys that I'm becoming.
Paul is a great guy, very active in the North Weymouth Civic
Excellent, Paul.
Association.
Thank you. Great question.
Crosswalk we'll look into. He mentions the Cigar City site, which has been purchased, which is another site yet slated for redevelopment in town.
Lots going on.
I don't think you can make the case that you want to work to get the Cigar City site on the National Historic Register. So hopefully not too many people will be upset when that building gets torn down.
Is it pretty beat up?
There's no firm plan right now. I'm very concerned about what the redevelopment plan for that site will look like. There is a house in close proximity in the rear. And if you remember when we did the commercial corridor overlay, that section of Bridge Street is not part of the overlay because of the fact that a lot of the streets behind Bridge Street, the houses are in close proximity to the lots on Bridge Street. So there's not a lot of depth of some of those lots. So we'll see how that plays out. The crosswalk issue might be something to consider. And I know Paul will probably be very active when there is a proposal put forward for that site because he is in close proximity to that.
Excellent.
Speeding,
what about speeding?
As far as the speeding, I would like to get the cop to go out on the bridge and then I will reposition him in my neighborhood where everyone speeds also.
That's a concern.
Paul, it's a problem everywhere in town. It's a problem in every town. We've talked about this. We get calls all the time. I need traffic enforcement in my neighborhood, here, there. Everyone says that it's worse in their neighborhood. You'll say it's worse in your neighborhood. Well, you got a quiet street.
Yeah, not too bad, but I understand. It's been a constant theme from
But he should know, according to the police department, now this is on certain violations. I don't know if it's across the board, but the chief informs me that a record number of tickets were written last year. So there is enforcement. Is there enough? Of course not. There'll never be enough. In my observations as an old man now, and have been driving for the same number of years probably that you have, I think that, forgetting congestion for a minute, but people's respect for traffic regulations is worse now than it's ever been in my lifetime, I believe.
Fair to say.
Everyone's in a rush. Everyone is distracted while they drive. It's crazy. I mean, the number of accidents on the highways now because of distracted driving are huge. The other thing is people talk about congestion. Well, we've talked about this a lot. It's not unique to Weymouth. Weymouth had flat population growth. People don't believe me when I say this, but it's a fact. From 1970 to 2010, actually to almost 2020, flat population growth, while every community around us had explosive population growth. The Hinghams, the Plymouths, the Abingtons. So the traffic is bad everywhere. The respect for laws are bad everywhere. But as I do when we get a complaint like this, we pass it along to the police department, and as they prioritize traffic enforcement, maybe Paul will see a cop out there.
It's a challenge for everybody, as you said, and a challenge for the police officers too.
I do see a police officer at the base of the bridge a lot, by the way.
Okay.
I've noticed them there.
Excellent, excellent.
I think that's one of the spots they like to sit, but
I'm thinking
I think he would like to have one there permanently.
And how fast can you go on 3A with all the lights that are there? I'm concerned with
people People open it up on the bridge,
all right.
man.
So what do I know?
Kidding me?
I'm across. I'm literally it's the furthest point away from that road as I possibly.
The bridge, yeah, the bridge is a raceway.
Okay.
And they do come down that road flying, and he lives on the first street that is on our side of the bridge, so he sees it.
All right, listen, we're in the home
He's
stretch
absolutely
here,
correct.
And I know they want to speed through the rest of the show so that we can finish it up, but we want to encourage everybody again, as always, askmayorbob@gmail.com, askmayorbob@gmail.com. Robert, this is interesting to me, and I learned something already on the show, and I think I'm going to learn something else. Dear Mayor, I have heard that the state is allowing accessory dwelling units that supersede local zoning control. Do you expect a lot more building as a result of this new law? Accessory dwelling units, Robert, what is that, and what
We
is he
actually
talking
covered
about?
this in the last show,
Okay,
briefly. Well, without being redundant on what it does, we just submitted a measure to the council to comply with the law. We're trying to come up with something that's fair and balanced. It respects property right owners versus the mandate the state has on us. And yes, it does, in answer to his question, Hank's question, it does supersede local zoning control.
What is an accessory dwelling unit?
I'm not going to get into that
Okay,
now,
so
but
it's quite
it
involved.
allows you to
Okay.
build another structure on your property to house another family.
But it has to be zoned for that, right?
They're making us, the state is it's another mandate from the state. So now we had, from 1969, we got the 40B law that supersedes local control. Now, a couple of years ago, we got the MBTA Communities Act that sort of forces us to build dense housing near MBTA facilities.
And I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, and you don't even have to host an MBTA facility in your
Right, they extend
community
it there.
to be subject to that law. And that's obviously topical now. Now, this is the latest mandate from the state that supersedes local zoning, telling us we have to allow, in certain circumstances, an accessory dwelling. So we've submitted the measure, more on that later. You'll see that being hashed out. But what I mentioned on the last show was our planning department was just in on a conference Zoom with state officials and people that are involved in this, shall we say. And one thing that became clear was they expect lawsuits similar to what has gone on with the MBTA Communities Act. And it was stated yesterday in this Zoom call that they expect this to be hashed out in the courts over the next 2 years. So there's going to be some challenges in different towns. You know, they throw these mandates out at us, and sometimes they're a little bit vague, sometimes they're contradictory, and you know, sometimes communities will come up with something that doesn't fit what the intention of the law was and will be hashed out in the courts.
All right, so in development, and it sounds like a lot of tweaks to that initiative.
You're going to probably see angst when these things start popping up in certain circumstances where neighbors aren't going to like what's happening in their neighbor's yard.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen.
All right. Well, stay tuned, as we like to say here at Ask the Mayor. And on that note, we are going to say goodbye, and thanks
And
everybody
I
for
add one
tuning
quick
in.
thing. What bothers me about the MBTA Communities Act and now this, there was very little or no, in the case of the Communities Act, no debate in the legislature. The governor files it, they approve it. There's
Somebody
no
signs it,
discussion
yeah, a bunch of
amongst,
bullcrap.
by our
That's
elected
not-
representatives
and that
up
is
there.
wrong.
And then everyone, after the fact, wakes up to it and says, gee, what did they just foist upon us? And they see a building going up and everyone's flipping out and they blame this person or that person when this is something that was shoved down our throats by you know, a big government coming out of Boston.
And that is not government by the people or for the people, and I think in most people's opinion. All right, we have to wrap this up. We have to say goodbye. But I do have one more, Robert. This is not a question, and we're ending the show on this is unprecedented in my experience as your co-host. From Paul Simpson, no questions, but I hope you will be our mayor again. Thank you for doing lots of good things for our city. How about that? Say good night and God bless here at the home day.
Well, thank you, Paul.
There you go. All right, so listen, stay tuned. We'll see you soon enough down the line, obviously.
I mean,
everybody have a great winter.
This is vague. I hope I'm on mair again, like when I wake up tomorrow and I'm still alive, right?
Headland 2029?
No.
All right. All right, stay tuned for... I like the Gong Show too, Mary. I like the Unknown Comic. Gene was awesome.
We're running out of SBA.
That was
SBK shows.
Gene the Dancing King.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.